Hi, everyone. I hope you've had a great week. Today, we're going to walk through lessons 105 to 108. So let's get started. This week, you're going to need the lesson manual, the student worksheets, the math card games manual with the game cards, the 4-in-1 ruler, the folding meter stick, the Casio SL450S calculator, the centimeter cubes, either 2 or 4 pieces of 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper. This is not included with your Right Start Math materials. The AL abacus. You will want to put together a list of objects to be measured. And if you have one, you can use a measuring tape in these lessons. Again, that's optional, and it is also not included in the Right Start Math materials. This week, your child will continue learning about and using measurements. So let's get started by turning to lesson 105. First of all, congratulations. You are 3/4 of the way through level C. So good job. The first paragraph of the warm-up is going to have your child work through problems 5 and 6 on the warm-up practice sheet 2. And the second paragraph is going to have your child review measurements of both the foot and the yard. The third paragraph is just going to review centimeters and inches. That fourth paragraph is going to ask general questions about measurements. And then that final paragraph is going to have your child review fractions. Now, once that warm-up section has been done, you're going to give your child worksheet 70, the 4-in-1 ruler, the folding meter stick, and the folding meter stick. This worksheet has several word problems that you're going to work on throughout the lesson. Make sure that when you get into problem 1, that you have your child read through the problem a couple times before you start to solve. Also, this particular problem is going to have your child compare their height with the height of somebody else. And just as you did in a previous lesson, you can have your child and whomever the other person is stand up against the wall and then mark their height, make a little tick mark on the wall next to their height, and then have your child measure that in inches, not in feet and inches or meters. Make sure they measure it in inches. Now, if you're not comfortable writing on the walls, you can also have your child lay down and mark the height, their height on the floor by putting down a book or a piece of paper next to their head and foot. And then again, measure that distance in inches between those two markers. Now, your child is to measure actually to the nearest ½ inch, and then they're going to calculate then those measurements. They're going to change those measurements from inches to feet and inches. So let them do as much as they can on their own, and then when they're done, discuss their answer. Now for problem 2, again, you're going to have your child read through the word problem several times before they begin to solve. And again, go over their answers after they finish it. Have your child work through those problems as much as they can on their own. Now on the top of the second page of the lesson, you'll see problem 3. And again, make sure your child reads through that problem, have them solve that problem on their own, and then go over their answer. Now, if you find that your child is making an error, don't worry about it. Just let them describe to you how they're getting those answers. And then when they get to a spot where their logic didn't work, then that's when you start asking questions. So you're pushing them back in, not telling them how to do it, but you're kind of guiding them to think about how to solve the problem. Now for problem 3, it might be helpful, I found it helpful anyway, to draw a square. So this particular problem 3, this particular problem is talking about a backyard and how big the backyard is. Now, what I did was I just drew a square on the whiteboard so they can visualize what that yard might look like, and then put the measurements around. And sometimes when my kids saw what that was, saw the object, saw the picture, it helps them solve that problem a little bit better. For problem 4, again, continue with that same process. Have your child read through the problem, give them time to solve, give them time to think, and then discuss their answer when they're done. Now, again, if they got their answer wrong, have them tell you how they got their answer and then guide them to the correct answer. Now, remember, guiding your child does not mean giving them the answer, but instead asking questions to guide them to how to think and then process the rest of it correctly. Now take a look at the section called calculator. In this section, your child is going to solve problem 4 again, but this time using the calculator. Now this section will give you a step-by-step instruction on how to enter the problem into the calculator. Now this is for the specific calculator of the Casio SL450S. Although these instructions might also work on other basic calculators, it will definitely not work on scientific calculators. So you're going to need to make an adjustment based on those calculators. Now, your child is figuring out how many inches a basketball player is who is 6 feet 10 inches. So they're going to start with the 6 feet and they're going to translate that back into inches. So they're going to take 6 feet times 12 because there are 12 inches in each foot, right? So, and there are 6 feet. So multiply 6 times 12, and then they will add another 10 inches because he's 6 foot 10 inches tall. So they're going to add another 10 to that total. Now, once your child has learned how to input that information into the calculator, you're then going to have your child solve another one that's listed towards the bottom of the middle of the second page of the lesson. They're going to calculate 2 feet 4 inches. Now, one important thing to consider with the Casio 450 SL or other basic calculators that they do not solve problems using the correct order of operation. So with the order of operation, multiplication needs to be done first and then the addition or subtraction. Or the solution is going to be incorrect. So if you find your child is starting with the adding or putting everything in straight across, so they're adding and then immediately putting in that multiplication, their answer might be wrong. So if you have more questions about the order of operations, there is a section on the explanation section right next to problems 5 and 10 that you might want to go through. Now remember, order of operations starts with exponent or parentheses, which we do not have in this, exponents, which we do not have any in this, and then multiplication and division are done at the same time, and then adding and subtracting are done. That's the order of the operations. Then you're going to have your child work through problems 5 through 10 on the worksheet, and then those problems are solved using the calculator as well. Again, discuss their answers, or if they've got anything wrong, kind of guide them through, ask them how they got those answers, and then work them through how to get them correct. Then you're going to have your child complete problem 11 on their own if they can. Again, have your child discuss those answers and explain how they got their answers, and then guide them to how to get it correctly. Now, there is not a math card game listed for this lesson, so you're going to want to pick a game that will keep your child's math facts strong. Well, let's go ahead and turn to lesson 106. Now for this lesson, you're going to need 2 or 4 sheets of paper, and those pieces of paper are not included in your Right Start math material. Now you will find that this lesson is very similar to lesson 104, but your child is going to be using centimeters and meters instead of inches and yards. Now the first paragraph of the warm-up is going to have your child complete problems 7 and 8 on practice sheet number 2. The second paragraph is going to have your child review foot and yard. The third paragraph is going to have your child, or it's going to have you ask your child general measurement questions. Now take a look at the section called 1 meter. Now the first thing you're going to do is you're going to get centimeter cubes, 10 centimeter cubes, and you're going to line them up next to each other. And then you're going to have your child measure those using the 4-in-1 ruler, the centimeter side of the 4-in-1 ruler. Now there are 2 sides to the centimeter side. One side is split in half. So each centimeter is split in half, but the other side, the centimeter, is split up into tenths. So have your child measure those 10 centimeter cubes, and you will find that they measure 10 centimeters. Then you're going to have your child, or take 2 pieces of paper, and just like last week, you're going to put 2 pieces of paper and line them up side by side. Again, I found it much easier for my child to use if those pieces of paper are taped together. It's easier to measure. And then they're going to measure these with the meter stick. Now, before your child measures those sheets of paper, you're going to have them explore the meter stick. Now, last week, we used the meter stick. We used the inch side of the meter stick. So you use this side. But for this lesson, you're going to flip it around and you're going to use the centimeter side of the meter stick. And while your child is exploring, you're going to have them, you're going to explain to them that 1 meter equals 100 centimeters, or 1 meter equals 100 centimeters. Now take a look. My particular meter stick, I don't know about yours, but my particular meter stick ends at 99, but there's an extra gap here. This extra gap is will take up the next centimeter. So there's 100 centimeters for this entire meter stick, and which is also called 1 meter. Then your child is going to use that meter stick and measure those sheets of paper. Then you're going to have your child draw that shape of paper in their math journal and record all of their measurements. The answers are listed in the on the top of the second page of the lesson. Now for problem 2, you're going to have your child measure those sheets of paper again, but connected on the short side as opposed to the long side, the short side of the paper. Again, I taped mine together to make it easier for them. Then have them record that information in their math journal. Now the solutions again are included in the lesson manual. For problem 3, you are going to explain to your child that each bead on the abacus, each one of these beads is 1 centimeter long or wide. So you're going to have your child imagine that all of these beads are separated from one another and that you line them up in one big long row. So they're imagining that all 100 beads are lined up side by side. And then you're going to ask your child how long all of those beads would be. And of course, that would be 100 centimeters or 1 meter. Then you're going to have your child measure various objects around the house. If you look in the section called measuring objects with centimeters, you're going to have your child measure various objects in the house using centimeters and then have them record those measurements in their math journal. Now, there is not a math card game listed for this lesson, so you're going to want to pick a game that's going to keep your child's math facts strong. Well, let's go ahead and turn to lesson 107. For this lesson, you're going to want to come up with a list of objects to be measured in your house. Now, the first paragraph of the explanation section will give you some ideas of what you can include in that. Also, this lesson can use a measuring tape. So if you have one available, go ahead and get that out for this lesson. The first paragraph of the warm-up is going to have your child complete problems 9 and 10 on their warm-up practice sheet 2. And then the rest of the warm-up is going to have you ask questions about various measurements. Now, take a look at the section called Worksheet 71. For this worksheet, your child is going to find a bunch of items to measure. They're going to guess that measurement and document that on the worksheet. And then they're going to measure that item and then record that actual measurement. Then they're going to calculate the difference between the guess and the actual measurement and put that information in the difference. Now, the first thing you're going to do is have your child measure the width of the abacus. So they're going to measure this, but first they're going to guess what the measurement is, and then they're going to measure this. And oh, by the way, they're measuring it in centimeters, not inches and not meters, but in centimeters. They're going to guess the measurement, actually do the measurement, write down both those pieces of information, and then find the difference. The next thing that they're going to do is they're going to measure the height of the abacus. Well, they're going to guess and then measure the height of the abacus. You'll also have your child on the top of the second page of the lesson, take a handful of centimeter cubes, just a handful, and then line them up and then guess, not count, but guess how long that row is, record their guess, then measure the row in centimeters, and then record and calculate the difference in their on their worksheet. Now continue with other objects around the house. There is not a math card game listed for this lesson, so you'll want to make sure you pick a game that will help keep your child's math facts strong. Well, let's go ahead and turn to lesson 108. Now, if you purchased electronic worksheets in 2015 or before, there is a correction for the warm-up practice sheet 2. So make sure you make the necessary changes before you give your child that worksheet to start the warm-up section. Now, the first paragraph of the warm-up is going to have your child complete problems 11 and 12 on that practice sheet. And then the rest of the warm-up is going to have you ask your child different questions about measurements. Then you're going to give your child worksheet 72. You're going to have your child look at and solve problem 1. Now, after your child has written down that measurement, you're going to want to have them discuss their answer to you. Make sure that they understand that this line, I don't know if you can see this line does not start at 0. It starts at 1. So some kids might just go down, oh, this line ends at 6, but that's not how long the line is. The line is measured from 1 to 5, not from 0, or 1 to 6, not from 0 to 6. So that might change their answer. So make sure you're pointing that out to them. Then have your child work through problems 2, 3, and 4 on their own, and then discuss their answers. Then have your child work through problem 5. Now, in this problem, your child is going to find the perimeter of a square. Now, remember what perimeter means. Peri means around, and meter means measure. So perimeter means measurement around. Now, if your child does not remember what perimeter means, you're going to want to go over that explanation with them so that and in fact, you want to do that so frequently that when they see the word perimeter, they think measurement around. Now, because they're measuring the perimeter of the square, and because the square is a regular polygon, each side is the same size, right? So they really only need to measure one side and then add that side 4 times together, or they can multiply that one side times 4 because they're taking that number times 4. Now, you're not going to want to say that to your child, but you might want to ask some questions. Wait a minute, what kind of polygon is this? Is this a regular polygon or not a irregular polygon? If they say regular, say what's special about regular polygons? They have equal sides. So that way you're guiding your child to think through that. All right, for problem 6, your child is going to determine the measurement of the bottom and then of the triangle and the left side of the triangle. Let me show you. The bottom of the triangle and the left side of the triangle based on the ruler. But we also need to find this measurement, but we don't have a ruler for that one. However, we are told that the perimeter measures 18 inches. So your child is going to have to figure out how to get that third side. Now, so basically they're going to calculate that side plus this side and subtract those two sides from 18. So if the base is 4.5 inches and the other side is 6 inches, 6 plus 4.5 is 10.5. And you're going to subtract 10.5 from 18 to get 7.5. So that third side, that angled side of the triangle is going to be 7.5 inches. There is not a math card game listed for this lesson, so you're going to want to pick a game that will keep those math facts strong. Well, that's it for the week. If you have any questions or concerns about a lesson, or if your child is struggling with something, give us a call or email us. We're here to help. I look forward to seeing you next week as we cover lessons 109 to 112. Keep going strong. We're getting there. Have a great week, everybody.